there. Before I start this presentation, I would like to just remind you that you can put your volume button into mute so that there is no disturbance. And I think
Yeah,
host
sure.
can do that one also.
Sure.
And if your host is allowing me to share the screen, I'll be able to do it.
Okay, I'll see.
I'm not able to share my screen.
Yeah, just a minute.
Are you able to share?
Yes, now I am able to share it. It's taking us a little bit of time, so please bear with me. Am I audible now? Can I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll start now. Yes, screen is shared. Now I'm good to go, I think. Thank you. I will start now. Yes, our screen is ready. Right now I'm going to start with this reinforced concrete structures. The very basic thing that we are going to discuss here. There may be many things that you have learned and what you are going to expect in this PPT, that is PowerPoint presentation, is that it's just the concept, idea behind how this design philosophy has evolved. Just that alone, not how this formula has come on and how these other things has come out. So this is basic design philosophy. So I would like to start with how a structural engineer is being identified, and then what are its problems, how he is going to start everything. Is my voice audible? I think I'm breaking.
Yes, you are
This is
audible.
the very much beginning outline of what I'm going to present. So first one is like flow chart. What the designer basically does, he tries to identify the problem. Like what is from where he will start. You have to identify the problem. So that is his first step. Like what is the problem? If suppose if you are a student, you know that some pages of your book is keep on overlapping or floating. Then what you will do? You will just put your geometry box or something over the paper. That's identification of problem and giving a solution. But that solution is systematic, that we don't know. So next step is like conceptual design and preliminary design. Just to solve that problem, we have kept the geometry box, but we don't know how long we don't have to disturb the geometry box. So what we will do, next step is like take a paper clip and put it in the thing. So identifying a problem. Next is a conceptual design, where you have to give a systematic solution. So this is how the designer has to flow in order to have a clear-cut picture of what he is doing. So first is identifying of problem. Second one is a conceptual design, and there goes how he is going to do it. So what all he has to take into consideration. Twice, because initially that idea has to pop up in their mind, so that they have to really have that idea in the mind, then make it into a reality. So here you can be able to see the picture of a Taj Mahal without the idealization or imagining the Taj Mahal into a paper. They cannot bring it into reality. So that gives everything are created twice, one in the mind, other on the Mother Earth. So you need to design before you start whatever reality you want to bring it into. So for design, what all to consider then? There goes the question: how, what all to consider in design? Yeah, there comes this strength, stiffness, and ductility. What is a strength? That whatever element is able to resist force acting on it, that is strength. Then what is stiffness? That element is able to resist the displacement of it, that is this stiffness. And what about ductility? There goes the property that where a property of element to undergo large deformation without the loss of either strength or stiffness. This has to be addressed, okay, in order to identify the structural elements, strength, stiffness, ductility. So designer has to understand all these things. So what is he intended to do then? Yes, his purpose is mainly to ensure the adequate safety of the strength and stability, as well as serviceability in terms of stiffness and durability. Next comes economic and availability. There may be enough resources around the world, but where you are going to construct a proper structure, there the availability of the material should be there. Then only you will be able to take it into account and design. Comes the method of three things: working stress method, ultimate load method, and limit state method. We have just listed out the three methods, but take a moment and just think how these methods has evolved over a period of time, that they are able to get and evolve themselves into these kind of ideas, because these ideas has evolved over not 2-3 years or 2-3 decades, but over a period of decades they have worked it out and find out which is the best method. So there comes the working stress method. Why it is called working stress method? What made them to find that what is working stress method? It's simple. Because working stress method, they wanted to start with something. So generally what we'll do, we will show all the strength whatever we have and we'll start with the building. So Cordner and Tesco are the first one to bring up this codified method, where everything they started to make rules and assumptions so that everyone can follow this one. So their assumptions is like elastic theory in bending. The basic assumption is that plane section remains plane before and after bending at cross section. This is their assumption. For elastic theory to be valid, this assumption has to be considered in order to go further upon. So what they think, they thought like stress versus strain is very much linear. People would have been laughed, or they wouldn't have known what to do or how to consider. But initially to start, they have to start from some point. They cannot wandering around. So what they did is they literally started to assume this stress versus strain is a linear. Next comes that for both or for single, they considered for both, because they don't want to get into too much of assumptions and problems. So they took concrete and steel as well as both of them to be having a linear property, that is stress is directly proportional to strain. So there comes the proportionality constant, Young's modulus E. Then it should act monolithically, right? So what about that in reality? It doesn't behave like that. So they took another assumption, assumption like tensile stress are only carried by reinforcement and not by concrete. There comes another problem. What they made an assumption. They made an assumption, so in order to evaluate that one and just go with that one, they made another assumption that they can invent a modular ratio. That is, modulus of elasticity of concrete and steel are equated, and then they found this modular ratio where m is equal to 280 by 3 times sigma CBC. Here, the basic assumption all behind these theories and the proceedings are that whatever the material yields, then it is considered to be failed. Is it so? Even after eating 2-3 chapatis, I still can take one more chapati, right? So my yield may be three chapatis, but for the last one, my ultimate is not 3. So, but whereas in working stress, they thought like after taking the yield stress itself, the material has failed. But in reality, that is not the case. So there is again a fault. And they consider that working stresses are always less than, that is, are under permissible limits. Like they consider like yield, no? So there anyway the material is going to have ultimate stress, but there should be another problem that they didn't mind at all. Like they're putting too much of materials, so obviously it is not economical. So again there comes a problem. Next problem is that they consider the working load. What all loads can come, that alone they can consider. Like what are the weight it is going to act upon. That's all. Put together, they have designed this one. So that is why they are calling this one as working load. That is service load. Whatever there is the service requirement, that they have taken it. Here it shows based on these assumptions, the total compressive force C is equal to the tensile force. That's the basic assumption where we made that stress versus strain is linear. This is a stress diagram where you are able to see a singly reached concrete beam. In that, they have seen this one. And there goes this assumption and these formulas. All these things are regular to you. You would have known these ones. If you get anywhere, any problem in this one, it is so simple. But the main thing you have to identify here is, see here, the moment that is considered on a compression side, it is considered to be CJD, where the C part is considered to be constant, 0.5 times of sigma BC BKD. Can this be always constant? Then what if I vary the concrete strength? What if I vary the yield, this bar strength, reinforcement strength? Everything changes, right? But they considered this to be constant, the value of C. So thereon they have started the design because they don't know the war problems. So they have to start somewhere. So they started this one. And there goes the value where Q is identified to be constant and it's taken as to be 0.5 times of sigma CBC JK. Where same thing can be estimated with the help of tensile reinforcement, tension side. So that is TJD, where sigma ST is the stress that of steel and the area of the steel, and JD is, that is the lever arm distance. So this is very much simple, and where sigma CBC is nothing but the permissible stress in the concrete. IS 456 gives a complete table about how this one is created and their values also. Here you can see the bending compression value for various concretes, grade of concretes, where hem is mixed and this number gives you the concrete grade. So then they thought like, what working stress method is somewhat too much cost consuming and not economical. So what are the limitations? They have mentioned it. Okay. here you can see first point itself. They have considered that material behavior is elastic. Elastic in the sense that the stress versus strain is completely linear. This cannot be realistic. It is unrealistic. So on a longer terms, when they found out that concrete is undergoing creep, shrinkage, they found that the stresses are getting redistributed. So it is not the same how it initially started and how it has ended. So they are not able to see what this assumption made. They are into big trouble. So under the assumption estimation of material strength, like underestimation, that they have put so much of materials into this place where they are just understanding like once the material yields, that's all, that material has failed. That is their understanding. But what about this plastic stage where it goes beyond that yielding point, that they have not considered at all? Okay, that leads to large compression steel as well as large geometry, because they have some certain load and they think that if it yields, that fails. So they have made the sections to be large but better serviceability. Large sections are better serviceability because it can even stand for so much of time. You can see so much of examples that are standing today, that most of these sections are very much large. That is, they are able to see these things, and large geometry means obviously better serviceability. Next problem is that stress versus strain is not at all linear for non-linear for concrete. It is non-linear. So modular ratio, where I showed you that formula, that is not at all constant, but they have taken it into constant. This is another problem in this working stress method. And they have not categorized what are the different loads, what are the types of loads that they have to take. They have taken all the loads that comes into play and they have just added those values and then designed for it. That is not at all economic. See, like there, for example, dead load counteracts wind load, but they are going to for both dead load as well as wind load. That is, they are going to design for 1 + 1 2. But whereas here 1 - 1 is 0, that they don't have to take into consideration of this one, where dead load is counteracting the wind load. These mistakes are being done in the work-strain stress method. That's why it is not at all feasible. So what can we do? Then we have to rectify all those mistakes. So people slowly evolved into this ultimate load method, where it is considered at collapse state, what happens? There has to be some method, right? So they found that stress condition has to be taken to the collapse state, that final state, final ultimate failure. So this happened around 1950. So they have formulated this ultimate load method. So it has to be much benefited than the previous method. Then only they can attend this one, right? So what all considers were there, they have taken that one. Stress versus strain is non-linear. They take the curvature of stress strain curve of concrete and steel at collapse level. Remember, at collapse level, this is the more important thing in this ultimate load. They're considering the highest point, highest failure of this material, and they are taking that one as the stress versus strain curve and designing with that help. The basic problem here is this collapse state, but they wanted to formulate this one because that will help them much more in saving materials and other things. That's why they wanted to design for the collapse state, ultimate strength. I will give you a better example. What is this one? Like in a ultimate state, ultimate load method, it is like designing a handbrake for a car. You can put a handbrake while driving a car if you want to bring it to all of a sudden stop, because brakes are intended to bring the vehicle stop, right? So you can put a handbrake, but every time whenever you want to slow down the car, you cannot pull the handbrake, right? There has to be some other mechanism. Collapse state is also like that. Only the ultimate stage they have seen. So they are taking the ultimate load, not considering all those working loads. So, and they are overcoming, that was a mistake they have considered. And what are the benefits previously considered for working stress method? That is, they are considering load combinations. Like they want to factor that load. How their dead load was counteracting wind load, I have explained that as an example. Like that, they wanted to account for loads. So they have taken load factor, that is ultimate load, that is design load that they have considered as a combination was as a ratio to a working load. So for dead load, they have found it to be 1.5, and for live load, they have found it to be 2.2. All these values are given in the IS 456 1964 version. So it will not be available in IS 456 2000. Okay, but these values have been given in that code book, and I have shown it as an example. Because of ultimate load, and they have considered a non-linear portion of the stress strain curve, the members section has come down. So they consider this to be a economical design. That is their major advantage. Slender section. Previously we were telling like all the sections are large and geometries are large, that they are having better serviceability, but it is too much to accommodate, that they are not able to advice for everybody. So they have found this ultimate load. There ends the problem. Huh? We have to think. Again, there comes a problem. Like here, they are considering only for collapse data. Slender section may not react like other normal structure. Slender section may bend. Take for example a paper. If you just hold a paper between your fingers and then see that it is so slender that it will automatically sag in its own dead load. So that is not good. Even though it is slender, whatever intended they wanted to achieve, but it is not providing the purpose of designing it. So there comes the problem. And the basic concept around ultimate load is that design load effects are always less than design resistance. So whatever resistance they wanted to face, or whatever resistance that structure has to have, that they have taken to be much greater than the design load effects. So that is this one. And the limitations what they have given is there is no proper serviceability. As I explained, slender section may bend on its own dead load itself. So there is no satisfactory serviceability. If a bridge is so much slender, by walking on it, it will automatically deflect. So psychologically, it is affected. People will not use that bridge. So it is automatically a failure. So that thing is a major defect in this ultimate load limitations. And there is no proper non-linear analysis performed. Non-linear analysis means for a concrete, every time they are pouring something in the site, and every time they are not doing all the stress versus strain curve test and everything, and then performing those with the help of that one, and every time they cannot bring a proper curvature plan, and with that values they cannot use this one. So there is no rigorous analysis being done. That is also seen as a difficulty. And the major difficulty is predicting plastic hinges. These sections are slender, as I told you. So these sections will automatically bend due to their own self-weight. In that cases, plastic hinge happens very quicker stage, that people will not be having enough warning to identify those things. That becomes another difficulty. So now people has to design and have a design philosophy where they have to perform the better and consider all these malfunctioning as a good example and work on it. So how they are doing it? So they slowly evolved and found a mathematical way, what they call as probabilistic design or reliability analysis. So each structure is unique in its own way, but they want to do a more rational mathematical frame for this one, so that they will identify how this method is going to work and how it is much more economical than the other methods, and how these other methods demerits are being handled here. So what they are doing it in this one, basically two things they are identifying. That is, there are uncertainty in the geometry that they are accounting risk will fail. If I give this kind of dimension, how much it will fail, and then they are able to do this one. So identifying the risk and quantifying it in terms of probability. So how it is done? Actually, it is done through statistical and probabilistic way. Like I keep on testing for some various 10 samples or 20 samples and then find out it and then do it. This is like kind of a tedious process for everybody, because for every this kind of meeting and this kind of structural design, they cannot keep on.
Hi, Mahesh, you are not audible.
They want to be, sir.
Mr. Mahesh, you are not audible properly.
Hello?
Can you just last 2-3 sentences? Can you again?
Hello, now you are able.
Yes.
Can you repeat last some words?
We'll wait for 2 minutes. Let Mahesh again join.
Hello, Sonu sir. Please be continue.
Just 2 minutes.
Hello, sir. I am able to. Are you able to hear me, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, I will share the screen. Just a minute, I will share the screen.
Sir, you have only 6 minutes remaining. So kindly
Don't
do
worry,
fast,
I
sir.
will be able to finish.
Okay, thank you, sir. After that, you have to take question also from some people that want to ask some question.
Sure. Yes. Are you able to hear? Can I proceed further?
Yeah, please.
Yes. Here they wanted to proceed through statistical way. So, like, they are finding it very much difficult because every time they have to give up rigorous analysis, and for every single thing they have to do it. So, like, there is a saying like, there is no single size shirt for all the universe, right? So they cannot customize for everyone also. So in that case, they are grouping them and then creating a masterpiece like chart or something so that they can fit some people. That's where this limit state is being considered and it is taken into picture. So other methods were recently we saw is probabilistic, whereas limit state is converted from probabilistic to deterministic way. Like every time the system is same and the approach is same, so you can take that one. So there it will be very much helpful. And it is known as LRFD in American Concrete Institute. And what are the various benefits that other methods is not having? Like for there are so much of partial safety factor that is considered, where instead of probability of failure, here just the partial safety factor is considered, so that they don't have to find the probability and work out the mathematical way. And like stress versus strain is taken, like they are taking all the benefits of previous methods and neglecting their limitations using the recent method, that is limit state method. So they are taking that non-linear curve, various load combinations is considered from the ultimate load method, and now all the sections are not always slender. It gives economical design, so serviceability is taken care, where the cracks is of permittable thing, and the span to depth ratio is there, so that there is no much deflection, so serviceability is taken into thing. So what they expect in limit state, first thing is strength, limit state of strength or limit state of collapse, they call it usually in the IS code 456. And the other thing is limit state of serviceability. There should be no psychological effect in this thing. So other thing is like long-term thing, that is corrosion and creep. Here you see how these experiments are conducted, and what are the statistics and histograms that have been followed, and how it forms a normal distribution curve. From this they are able to see it. So in limit state they have found two things. One is load effects. What are the load effects that are coming? On the higher side, if you see, these are like very rare to occur. It may not occur within a given period, but the probably the normal distribution curve shows that part also. And resistance is, here it is the weaker resistance, whereas here it falls to be the greater value. But when the load is high and the resistance is less, here forms the failure area. This region is if a design falls into this region, then the structure may collapse anytime, even in under a normal condition. May not be the huge this thing. So they have to consider these things, and they are designing this one. And how to account this one? They have given different types of partial safety factor for dead load, imposed load, that is nothing but live load, and wind load. When are the cases and when they have to form? These are all always spoken and always given. These may be very much usual. So what are the limit state serviceability, how the deflections are taken care, all these things are always there in IS 456, and you can refer this one. And most important I want to say is, all these things you would have seen, but here characteristic strength. Always people have a doubt, what is characteristic strength? What are the characteristic strength? Everybody tells how to measure this characteristic strength, that it may not fall. Characteristic strength is that below which the 5% will not fall. What 5%? What below will? Why that 5%? What they are considering it? This is that probability curve, that normal distribution, where they are considering 90% for 95% for safety and 5% of risk, because everything is considered to be risky only. They cannot take it for 100%. So these values are being decided by both structural engineer as well as owners and designers who are outside the boundary of structural engineer, so that they think whatever is economical, that I will take. I cannot put all the money for 100% safe.
Hello. Are you audible me? We are shifting to other link because this link is not working properly, because your sound
Yeah, I'm able to hear it.
Your sound is not coming properly, so we are shifting to other link. Okay, any problem?
Okay, no problem.
So we are shifting to other link. We will send just now.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
Ahmad. Okay. Please, people, kindly hope up with this one. Sorry for the trouble.